I was 27, Blake was a year and a half, and I needed a job. My friend Harry Kawaguchi, whose parents came back to Japan after the war, and he was a psychologist and worked at the Austin State Hospital, previously known as the Austin State Lunacy Bin, told me that I could get a job there as an attendant. We can take it lightly, and I will as much as I can, but of course, insanity or nuttiness or the other 46 words for it are real lessons in who needs to be well taken care of in this world. Let me see now, where was I? Okay, so I took the job and I went for training, which was 2 days, and they said, be careful of suicidal people if they seem happy, because that means they've decided to really do it. And here's how you take a blood pressure, and wear a white uniform and white shoes, and off you go. And off I went, knocked on the door, they opened it up for me, gave me a set of keys, which is the license to be one of the real guys instead of one of the crazies in the nut house. And I was off. So I started, and what Charles and I talked about at the beginning was, what was your first job? And you shouldn't be ashamed to, whatever, flip burgers or whatever. So what I did was I mopped toilets in a mental hospital. And it was nice. It was quiet. They were all totally doped up. So nobody made a mess. Everything was completely neat and orderly. Everybody seemed like perfectly normal. And so when I wasn't on the nurse's station or taking somebody to the hospital or monitoring dinner or listening to somebody telling me what to do, I was off in the bathroom, mopping away. It was nice. Okay, let me see now. Oh, all right. First I was on the receiving ward, which was where the psychiatrists, who thought they knew everything, and the psychologists, whom they despised as not knowing anything, worked. And it was interesting because they talked, and I was a college student, so I talked to them and asked questions. And it was on a very large piece of ground with wards around in a circle. I don't remember very many people being out in the middle on the grass, but I worked on that ward, and they sometimes sent me to other wards. So I worked on the electroshock ward, where some poor woman was doomed to lose her memory of her trauma and her professional information. So they would give her a shot to relax the muscles. So she thought she would die because she couldn't breathe. And then they would give her another shot to put her out. And then we would all gather around and hold her arms and legs around. And they would put goop and electric connections on her head and zap, zap. And then memory of her disaster would be gone. And memory of her life. Then they put me on the alcoholic ward, where everybody was wheedling and needy and above everything because they were all voluntary patients. And they didn't like me. I wouldn't do what they wanted to do because it was against the rules, and so they took it personally, and so I didn't like them much either. I was on the receiving ward for about 6 months, where everything was elegant and professional, and then I guess that was when I changed my hours from day to evening. Oh, 5 minutes, thank you. And they sent me to the Stygian back wards, one where the women had their minds destroyed by syphilis. They were all born around 1900. And there the attendants were callous and cruel and hated me because I asked questions. I came back from my day off one day, and the most disgusting, drooling, snarling patient had died because they had been feeding her pancakes, and she choked, and they didn't know how to use the suction machine. Off she went. Nobody cared. Nobody was sorry. And on that ward and the next ward, the doctor would, once a week, come through, lock himself in, zip across the ward, go into the nurse's station, and ask the nurse, whatever she was, who was in charge, who was about a 1 month training ahead of the attendants, which I was, ask her, okay, who needs what? And she would say, well, this patient needs this. Okay, you would write it out. And this patient needs this. Prescribing. And then he would unlock himself out of the nurse's station and run. And never saw a patient. And as far as I recall, that was pretty much the same on the bedridden ward, which was hell. The syphilitic ward was purgatory, and poor old bedridden women who had lost their minds. The smell was terrible. It was awful. Mercifully, I think I was only there for a day, but unforgettable. The final interesting ward I was on was the ward for the real crazies. The attendants would dope them up. So the container for their liquid Thorazine, to be sure that they took their medicine, was this big, and they were supposed to put in so many drops. But the attendants said, forget that, here, give them this much. So they were all really mellow, except at the full moon. And these women, who were all sturdy country women, they told me that, I wasn't there, but they told me that at the full moon, no matter how much Thorazine they gave them, they climbed the walls, they fought with each other, they screamed. They were truly lunatics. So, if you ever wonder, there's something to it. Lunacy. It's one of the earliest words in English for craziness. The earliest word in English is about poetry, wood. It's about poetry and shamanism and prophecy and oracles. So that was the earliest association to craziness. And now they're all out on the street. Okay, let's see what else I had. The biggest thing I learned working at the state hospital was that though neurotic from beginning to end, I will never be crazy the way they were. And that really was a relief. I'm not sure how I knew it, but I did. I knew it. Okay, let me see. That's about all, except I want to tell you that in America, Medicaid is for sick people, not for old people. And the 4% of the population in America who have brain disorders like psychosis and bipolar disease, they are legally cut out of Medicaid medical care. They're on the street, they're in prisons, and they die 25 years earlier than the rest of us die. There's a website, ask me afterward, called polslegacyproject.org, and they are addressing this problem of the continuing callousness of the American medical profession and political organization, everybody, the callousness against these illnesses which are not voluntary. Neurosis is voluntary, according to Jung. Early decision, but reversible. Brain problems. I have a Down syndrome grandson, and so I'm especially aware of brain problems, and they are not healable. Okay, and Becky Jennison definitely wants me to say, vote, Americans, and vote for Obama.